Hello and welcome to the Life and Fight of a podcast. My name is Jake Cross from Empire Grappling and UK Fighting Championships. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host Simon Price. How's it going, Simon?
Yeah, good mate. Yeah, just ready to get some sunshine now.
Pissing it down. We're also being lucky enough today to join by Smooth Sam Spencer, who's a professional MMA Bantamweight. How's it going, Sam?
All right, yeah, not bad. Nice to join you.
Thank you very much.
Like you say, but weather's not too clever. It's a bit grey, bit wet. Just been out coaching in the rain. But
Nice.
I'm playing.
That's the thing at the minute, isn't it? Obviously, because of social distancing, if you are doing stuff outside, you've literally got to rely on the weather, which is a bit bad.
Yeah, it's an interesting like debacle every day. Like other day, I was doing. Did you see that thunderstorm and the lightning storm the other day?
Yeah.
I was out in the park teaching a private. It's just absolutely pissing down, sideways rain coming in your face. Guys are hitting the pads, and it's like my pads had absorbed that much water that every time it gets hit, it's just like squelching and squirting in my face. Yeah.
Sounds like a Rocky montage bit, like going through all the tough weather and that.
Yeah, everyone's running past or like driving, shouting out the window like, "You lot are keen." sideways rain.
So you don't understand we've been locked in for 4 months.
I know people are gagging to just punch stuff, no matter if it's soggy or not.
Yeah.
Did you see that video that I shared on Empire the other day where you've got that young kid, he must have been on something, and he's like screaming saying, "I love you, I'll fucking have anyone, I love you." It's like, that's literally what everyone's like at the minute.
Yeah, I posted something the other day, like, can't wait to be like, I'm injured at the minute, so I'm going to be sat at the side of the mat for the first few spars, and I just get to watch the violence unfold where everyone's been craving a bit of punch up for months. So looking forward to front row seats at that one.
I say, imagine you're chomping at the bit to get back on there and doing some bits at you as well.
Yeah, it's mainly like the social aspects of the gym being closed that I'm missing the most. Like, I've been training throughout lockdown. Like, as soon as it started, I moved back to my mum's. I live in the centre of town at the minute, but my mum lives out in the sticks a bit. So I was moved back there. I was running and cycling and stuff and staying fit. I had a little heavy bag set up to a tree in a backyard, so I was staying active. But then after a few months of that, there's only so much training you can do by yourself before you're just missing everyone, missing the crack at the gym and all that. It's not real training, is it, when you by yourself? I mean, it's all right, but it's better than that, but it's not the same.
Yes, well, it's better than now, like, because that's one thing like I've been trying to tell the guys that I coach is just keep your conditioning there. Because that return to the mat is going to be horrendous when you're getting your first session back.
Yeah. I was speaking to a few of the lads from the gym saying it's going to be like an eye opener who can self motivate when we get back. Like, there'll be some lads that turn up shredded who've been just running and doing sit ups all day and press ups all day, been smashing the training, ready to go. Some guys are going to come back with right beer bellies. We'll see.
Bunch of biscuits out of them.
Yeah, exactly that.
You've got a good point about the social side, because us being out in this bubble, in this circle of MMA or jiu-jitsu, you sort of start in the game and you've got your friends from maybe school or where you're from and stuff like that. Then you get into MMA or jiu-jitsu and you start training, and then they become like the closest people. You see them more than sometimes your missus or your mum and dad, and then
100%.
all that's taken away from you, and you sort of a bit lost. Yeah, you can message them and stuff, but you literally spend probably 5 or 6 hours a day from how much you train.
Yeah, more for me, especially at the gym at Predators that I train and work at. We've got like a full team of fighters, and who kind of all work full time out of the gym as well. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 or 5 guys that are all trained, and then obviously Gav that owns it as well. 5, 6 guys that are in there at least 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? We're there all day, every day, pretty much. So. And then they're early in the morning, they're till late at night. It's pretty much people's full days that are made up on the mat, and then all that just disappeared in a day. Strange, very strange.
Quite a tough one to adapt to in it as well, especially going from that all day, every day. Like mentally, like that's one thing that I found toughest at the start was just the absence of
any sort of routine.
Yeah.
I to be honest, I don't do too bad when I've got like unscheduled free time. Like, I can normally find stuff to do to keep myself entertained, and I'll train and stuff. But I spoke to a few of the lads. Obviously, not everyone's made up the same, and so I've spoke to a few lads, and they have been struggling. Like, they like the set routine. I've got jiu-jitsu at 12 noon. I've got sparring at 1, and then I'll go rest and eat and come back later. They've got 6:30 MMA class or whatever. Like they're all week scheduled around the gym timetable, and without that, they really struggle finding a way to, one, stay busy, and two, just like keep that mental peace that having a set routine gives people. Like depending on your own makeup, like some people adapt and some people really it's really hit them hard on it.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Add into the fact that no one, like, it's been difficult to make any money for the first few months as well. If you're training people full time, and it's hard to teach MMA from a distance, especially when the COVID police were out at first. Like, everyone was shaming you for doing anything that involved another person. So it was like zero incomes, like that.
Yeah, I think the worst thing as well was like the government's done what they can, but for the self-employed, you've got to wait 3 months before any help's coming.
Yeah, we got that first one, and a lot of people as well. Like, not everyone's got their books organised and stuff. Like, I know a lot of people that work in the gyms. They work cash in hand, cash out of hand. Like, it just comes and goes. They don't keep books. They don't declare earnings and stuff like that. So they weren't entitled to any little bit of help. They've got no income on paper, and they've got no, so they can't get no, like, what was it? It was like 80%, wasn't it? I know I got a bit of cash. It was like 80% of declared earnings for the last. Yeah. I still have a few years books on paper to get that. So if you didn't have that in place, you're out on your ass. No way to make money.
I think that's where you found yourself, Jake, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've said a few times on the podcast, it's because I've gone from full-time to working on Empire full-time as of this year. Yeah. I've invested into Empire for so many years. I've never paid myself. I never had to. I had a full-time job. Whereas if this would have happened in 2 years' time, I would have been fine. I would have been able to show something. But I was lucky enough to have savings, and that's one thing that survived me and the missus and stuff. But it's not easy. You literally have to move things around, even if it's moving things 3 months ahead, like a mortgage or rent or whatever, just to survive and try and keep yourself. Because not only, like you said, Sam, about the mental aspect of keeping a routine, it's a mental aspect of all that worry and that stress of the unknown, because still no one knows when this is going to end. It looks like there's a lot more light at the end of the tunnel in the last sort of 7 days of things starting to open up. The Premier League came back a couple of days ago, and I'm of the opinion that the Premier League will be a massive force for a lot of other things. Like, people will see that being normal. You'll see gyms open up in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Then the social distancing will reduce, and then maybe August, if we're lucky, we'll get the MMA and we'll get jiu-jitsu, and even if it's in small numbers, that's fine. I think a lot of people will take that right now.
Yeah, anything's better than nothing, ain't it?
Yeah, I think the news came out today saying that they've reduced the risk from 4 to 3 now, and I was reading the news the other day, and it was, I think, from that first weekend of July, they're allowing, I think, gyms and general exercise activities to go back to normal. So hoping that combat sports fall into that bracket as well.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it'll be. We're all kind of just guessing, aren't we, what they're going to do until they do announce it. Like, but I've got a feeling it'll be like, especially for gyms and sports clubs, maybe not gyms like commercial gyms, but sports clubs. I think they might limit stuff to, like, say 10 people per session allowed at a time or whatever, because you've got limited space and people are going to be in contact. There's no way you can do MMA without any contact. So
no,
I think the only way we could maybe get around that is to like agree to only have a certain number of people in. But to me, it's just doing me head in now. I'm fed up with it. Right. It seems like the numbers have been manipulated that much by the powers that be that you don't even know who to trust anymore. You don't have to believe what you see on the telly, what you read on the social medias. You know.
Because you're
Barry down the road who seems to know everything about infectious disease, God knows.
Because you're a professional athlete and you've been paid as a professional athlete for many years now, have you fell into that sort of elite category that the government spoke about, so you're able to train with them? Have you been doing that?
I've not spoken to it. I've not heard anyone. I mean, there's not like a professional fighters association, so we've not got like a little card that, like, you do in the FA, that you can show, like, yeah, I'm a professional fighter or whatever. But yeah, for the last, I presume we would have been all right. I know I've seen a few people posting pictures that they're allowing. I can't remember which gym it was, because it might have been higher level up in Scotland, that they have like the gym open for the fighters. The professional fighters can still go and train together. But at the minute, I'm injured anyway, so I'm not really missing out. I'm just coaching. But I've been, like I say, I've been offering one-to-one coaching for the last few weeks, just since attitudes changed, since people stopped getting on everybody's back for being outdoors or for So I was never I wasn't really worried about catching the disease myself, and I was pretty sure I didn't have it. But like I say, like as soon as I could get back out and be coaching people, I was. Gym's shut, but we're just doing what we can in the parks and at people's houses and stuff like that just to get by.
Of course. Let's touch on you and your career then. I'm on Tapology and Sherlock, and even though I know most of what you did at the amateur career, there's nothing on there, which I'm quite shocked at.
Isn't it? It was back in the day, wasn't it? It was a while back before we had them things. What was it called? The other one, MMA Universe. I used to have an amateur record on that, if you remember that, back in the day.
Does that still exist?
On a website, and maybe not. God knows. I lost 2 fights as an amateur when there was no headshots, so it'd be like amateur C class, I think you'd call it now. I remember losing them 2 early on at welterweight, believe it or not.
Oh,
yeah, a little fat 16-year-old welterweight. Lost them 2.
So let's just quickly touch on some of your favourite amateur fights. Obviously, we can't really talk in depth about each one because I can't find the record for you. But what was it like sort of getting into the game? What got you into MMA as a sport? It's through Dec Williams, wasn't it?
Yeah. Dec was my first. Well, my second coach. The first coach was one of Dec's students who I went to school with. That's how I got into it originally. A lad called Jordan Noon. He started teaching probably a group of 5 of us or something after school at Dec's gym. Once a week or something, just to learn the dead absolute basics. I remember being out, just drinking cider on a park as a kid, and I remember seeing a street fight. I remember seeing someone get like badly knocked out cold, and the guy that did it was a pretty brutal guy, and he's like, the guy was out cold and he still hit him and stuff. And I remember being like, like seeing it and just shaking and being proper scared about all that. So then the next few days at school, I spoke to Jordan. I was like, Jordan, would you fancy teaching a few of the lads how to fight for a few of the boys? He'd had fights. He was only 14, 15 at the time, but he'd fought on, I forget the name, the Gladiator Challenge. That used to have like kids MMA fights back in the day, like I think in Midlands area, Doncaster area. So I knew he'd had fights, and I knew his big brother fought. I knew he trained with Dec. It's only a small village where we're from, so everyone kind of knows each other anyway. Did a few weeks with Jordan in like the after school class, if you will, and then we just ended up staying on and jumping in the adults class with Dec, and then within 3-4 months, I think, of my first ever bit of fighting that I'd ever done in my life. I'd always played sports, but I'd never done any fighting. Dec threw me into my first fight. Sink or swim, see how you get on.
Was that on, might have been Cage Conflict or one of his shows?
No, it was called, it was a show, I'm pretty sure it was called Civic Unrest, and it was ran by Will Burke, and pretty sure Rob Friedman might have been involved in running it as well from Blackburn Predators. I'm not sure though, I couldn't tell you, but I remember I fought a lad from Blackburn Predators. I fought out of Dec's gym, and I fought a lad called Lewis Scott, I fought him at welterweight, so I was 16, well out of shape, maybe 15, 16 I think, well out of shape, little pudding. I stopped playing football, stopped playing rugby, and put a little bit of timber on. Managed to get, I think I weighed in at like 75 kilos, so under the limit. He was like a paratrooper covered in tattoos, big muscled up guy, 30, I think he was 30 or something at the time. He just just booted me in my legs and threw me around and just proper picked on me for 3 rounds. That was my first introduction to MMA. That realised pretty quickly that I needed to lose some weight because them guys were massive. So I had my next fight, again, amateur C class, probably about 3 months after that. So within 6 months of starting training, I'd already had 2 cage fights. There weren't no headshots, though. It was only like pretty much a grappling match with leg kicks, aren't they, them amateur C fights. Again, I fought at lightweight against Wayne Tierney. You remember him? He was from Blackburn Predators, good fighter. Fought him. He did the same. He took me down, threw me around a little bit. He was a lot bigger than me. And then that was my last fight, no headshots. And then from that point on, then I waited a few months, got my weight down to like featherweight, which is a much better weight for me. And then I had six fights in it, amateur with like full headshots ones, like amateur A class, you'd call it now. I think I might have had 2 semi-pros though, with the 4-ounce gloves, but no headshots on the ground. It was weird. It was a weird time, wasn't it? There was all different rules you could fight.
Yeah, it's sort of like 2009, 2008, 2000 and maybe 12-ish, that sort of era was when rules were sort of changing, sort of like a part of that.
Yeah, that would have been 2010 and 11 when I had my first ones, and then I think my first headshots fight, where it was a semi-pro, would have been 2012, I think, around that time, something like that.
So on the when you sort of went to the amateur A side, you fought on Dec Show a couple of times. You're in a couple of title fights on that.
Yeah.
My mind's gone blank, but I remember seeing the video recently. Who was a guy that you beat who was a prospect?
So I fought a few lads on Dec Show early on. I won them. Them lads, I think it was their last fights. They never fought again after them couple fights. I fought a lad called Joe Naz. Joe Naz, Yusuf Nazagov. Fought him over a few rounds. That was probably my hardest fight. Even though I won it, that was my hardest fight as an amateur. Like, I remember he came out, he was shredded, he had tie shorts on. I never fought anyone with tie shorts on before, so I was scared. He starts marching out the tie start, and he's the first person that's like throwing punches at me and going, you know, like when they're really trying to take your head off. And I remember thinking, oh, shit, that shit me up a little bit. So I managed to out wrestle him a little bit. He was really good. He went on to do some big things as an amateur. A few flying knee knockouts and one punch knockouts, and I think he did some boxing as well. He's a really good fighter. We've trained together multiple times since. He's very good. Who did I fight after that? Fought a lad called Naveed Khan from up in Combat Challenge.
Yeah.
He was all right. Fought then my fifth fight on Dec Show. That was for the title. First, a guy called Dave Toole from Blackburn Predators. Yeah. He was good as well. That was a 5-rounder amateur fight. Managed to win that on decision. And then the last fight, my last amateur fight was against Jack Cartwright.
That was it. That's what my mind went on.
Yeah. He's obviously world champion now. Yeah.
Because you got the W over him, didn't you, in your last amateur?
Yeah, second round. We had a tough first round, back and forth. He took me down, and he like hit me in the body a few times. I kicked him in the legs. It was really back and forth first round. It's come out in the second round, and he kept shooting on me, and I weren't expecting that at all. I knew he'd wrestled, but in his fights previous, I'd only really seen him like he'd put people to sleep and boxed them. He had really fast hands, like you've seen in all his pro fights. He's got really dangerous hands, and he just kept shooting on me. So I think I went for a guillotine, and then ended up scrambling into a triangle. I finished the triangle in the second round. It was a good win. I was happy with that one.
Nice. So I remember seeing the fight back then. My mind went blank on the opponent. It was like the opponent was great for some reason in my head. But I think it came from someone's timeline like a few months ago. I think it might have been maybe Dec shared it. I think when Jack was fighting for the world title, just saying like...
Yeah, Sean as well, I think.
Yeah. Coming out of your amateur career and then going to pro, I think everyone's seen you as a prospect, how much you grew in that time. Obviously, you made the transition to under Gav Boardman. At what point did you decide to do that and it was like the right base for you? Obviously, Dec's a great guy, great coach, one of the most seasoned pros out there. What made you make the transition?
The reason I met Gav and started training at Predators in Manchester through Dec. Like Dec always trained out of Predators. He'd go over for Tuesdays and Thursdays evenings and do the classes. And then after I'd trained with him and I'd say 4 or 5 amateur fights, we started going over together. Like we'd jump in the same car and go over. And so he made the introduction. We'd train together at Gav. So we'd go over for sparring in the daytime. But around this time as well, I started university. I went to Salford Uni, which is like just 5 minutes from Predators. So I was over in Manchester a lot more anyway, because I'd be studying or be in classes or whatever all day. And then I'd just, rather than rush home to get to Dec's class, I'd just walk across the city and go train at Predators. So I found myself at Predators 5-6 days a week anyway. And after a while, like I just made the full time. Oh, in fact, it was when I finished uni, when I graduated uni, I was thinking, should I go get a job, do with this and that? And I spoke to Gav, and he said, why don't you teach in privates here? Like, how much money do you need a week? You're still living at home. You need kind of petrol money and food money and bills money, phone bill money and stuff like that. So I could earn enough money teaching some privates in Predators to kind of make it a full-time thing. So then I just kind of didn't have time to go back to Dec's and come and work at Predators and be going back and forth all the time. So I just kind of made base at Predators for the foreseeable. And then that little period there after my last amateur fight, I had 12 months pretty consistently training week in, week out with Gav. before I turned pro. I had a few little injuries in the 18-month gap, but I was training all the time with Gav. I really learned how to strike, I think, then. Gav's brilliant boxing coach. I've never trained with a boxing coach who's like well-rounded and his class, just as high quality as Gav is. And kind of fell in love with striking at that point, because I never really did much striking as an amateur. I played rugby before I got into MMA, so I just always like grapple people and try and take them down. But over that 18-month period, I really like kind of learn how to throw punches, throw combinations, and defend and move, and you know, just the fundamentals, if you will, got really drilled into me for striking. And it was at that point where I thought I might as well turn pro now. I've got grappling base and now I've got confidence in my striking. And I thought if you're going to be a professional fighter, people want it to be exciting. So I kind of gravitated then away from grappling and tried to make some moves in my kickboxing.
Well, it's like that transition from being sort of like primarily a grappler to sort of being like having that confidence in your striking, for a lot of people that could be quite a big transition mentally. Like, how did you sort of find that?
It was really exciting. I remember it being a really exciting time, because I always, like, obviously as soon as I started training, I started watching fights, and I always loved watching strikers, but I couldn't ever see myself doing it. I felt stiff, I felt sluggish, I was short, so I was always getting hit. You know, before you've got head movement, if you're boxing as a short guy, it's not a fun place to be when you're sparring with some long guys who can just just keep you at the end of them jabs. So once I started figuring out like how to actually move and be kind of comfortable in sparring rounds rather than just a bit panicky because I was always getting punched, I started like being able to like see how I could, you know, draw people onto my punches and land some nice shots and move around people and feel like kind of like getting into a bit of a flow with my striking. And I just remember being like proper excited that I might be able to get some of this out in fights, because I'd had 6-7 fights at this point and never really shown any striking. I was like, oh, now's going to be the time when I turn pro, I can get some cool shit out of me in fights and show what I've been working on in the gym. I wasn't really worried about it, because I kind of always had the grappling to fall back on if it went Pete Tong. If I got caught or something, I always had a decent like blast double leg and stuff like that. But I remember being proper excited to like let my shots go in fights and let some combinations come out, which luckily they did in my first pro fight.
Yeah.
You mentioned about Gav's technical ability, the way he teaches and his boxing and stuff. When I was under Gav for a short period of time in the early 2010s for 6-7 months, I just remember thinking how detailed he was, even on the ground. Like when he would go through little things, and then little light bulbs would go off, and he would come over and speak to you and go, "No, this is what you should be doing better," and stuff like that, or you should be doing this little thing, and a light bulb would keep going off, and you're thinking, it makes it sound so simple, and then makes things so easy and fluent. And that's why I completely agree that maybe the boxing as well. Which is good. I think
he's underappreciated as a striking coach. Everyone knows he's a black belt and his jiu-jitsu is top notch. Like we've always had good grapplers come out of our gym. He's already awarded multiple black belts himself, but there's not many. I don't think he gets a recognition that he kind of deserves as a striking coach. Because if you look at the amateur team we've got now, they're all great strikers. If you look at the few pros we've got in our gym now, we're all good strikers. Yeah, I think, and it all kind of stems from Gav and the way he's instilled the fundamentals. It's that kind of philosophy that he has about coaching. That's I think the key to the consistency of the fighters that he turns out is drills your fundamentals into you, drills them to you. So you have to have fundamentals, but really open-ended as to what you want to build on top of that. I feel like kind of allows the individual to add their own flair, if you will, onto whatever fundamentals that base is built upon. I think that's one of the keys to Gav's success as a coach.
Yeah,
I think that as well. Go on, Simon. I think that as well, adding that freedom of creativity is what adds to like a flourishing gym as well. Like you can't have everybody in the gym sparring exactly the same, otherwise no one's going to progress.
Exactly.
Styles under the same roof, it allows everyone to just push themselves further creatively as well.
I think it's just physically impossible as well, going off body size. Like if you put me and, you know, Tony Morgan, I know you know Morgan, Jake, like he's 6 foot plus, really all arms and legs. I'm definitely not 6 foot plus, and I've got little T-Rex arms. So like to expect us to both fight the exact same all the time, it'd be a ridiculous idea. It's just not going to work. not to say that I can't fight behind a jab and Moggy can't fight in close, but to have us both doing the exact same thing would be like a very limited approach to fighting, I think.
No, I agree. And I think you hit the nail on the head in relation to Gav being underappreciated in the MMA scene in the UK. Obviously, he's brought through some great fighters. I think top of the list would be Rob Sinclair and who he had for a long time and stuff. I feel like, obviously in the Northwest, the shows that we all work on, I'm part of UKFC, FCC, the Predator shows, all them. Everyone knows who he is. Everyone knows. But I think outside, he's so good as a coach. I just hope one day it's really recognised in a bigger scale, because a lot of fighters he's brought through have been brilliant. I remember when you sort of started at Predators, you were sort of lucky enough to have Mike Berry, sort of the same weight, the same sort of style aspect,
and Declan as well.
And Dec, obviously Mike doesn't do much at all anymore from what I know. I speak to him every now and then. But what was that like to have someone like Mike, who was probably just ahead of you in the amateurs and the pros, and someone you were following suit for? What was that sort of like to follow?
It's tough rounds. I remember that. It was always hard rounds. It can kick, like he can throw a head kick from like an inch reach. It's ridiculous. You just whip a head kick up before you can even see it coming. Yeah, he was always good. We had Gaz as well, Gaz Pilot, who was a really good bantamweight at the time. Yeah. Absolutely horrible to roll with. Like as soon as he gets old, it's just like a little clamp it on top of it. He was a nightmare. Who else did we have? We had Brendan coming through the doors all the time at that time when I first started. The mat at Predators when I first started was horrific for me anyway, because I was the smallest and pretty much the rawest and the newest on the mat. I had James Duckett all the time on there, Azimac, Avi Jack, Tony Morgan, Mick and Rob Sinclair, Brendan. Brendan would bring down Tony and Kane every now and again. Who else did we have? We had like, what's he called? Obviously Gaz Pilot, Dec, Mike. It was a mat full of like really dangerous fighters, but kind of disbanded a little bit, that team. The guys went their own way, did their own thing, and moved. Some went away from fighting, some up in their own gyms, some guys moved away, did all different things. So it was kind of like, what years would it be? Like 2015, Predators fight team was kind of, there was a bit of a void there. There wasn't really anyone like active and doing really well. There was a stage where it was just me and Moggy on our own at the gym as pros, really. But Gav's never like pushed anyone to fight. It just so happened that them few years before, like we had a load of good fighters in the gym, and Gav always leaves it up to the individual. If they want to fight, they can fight. If they don't want to, it's not going to be the coach phoning you up like, go running. You need to be running this morning because you're fighting. Like, if you want to train at Gav's gym, he's there to teach you martial arts, and if you want to fight, that's completely up to you. Which I really like. I like that approach. I don't think I'd do well with like a drill sergeant coach being on me all the time to do this and do that. Like, an adult, you can make your own decisions and look after yourself in it. So, like, I think Gav's main priority as a coach is that he's having a good vibe in the gym where everyone learns high quality martial arts, and the community that's built around the gym is like, it's a tight knit community where everyone's got each other's back, everyone has the crack, and everyone has a really good experience from training. If that leads you down the path of becoming a fighter, an active fighter, cool. If it doesn't, sweet, no issues at all. You just crack on with your training. So that could potentially, maybe, like I say, is underappreciated as a coach, because he's not turning out hundreds of fighters all the time. There's not loads of fighters coming through, but I think if you look at the fighters that do come through, you can't really question the ability of the coaching. They've got some good skills. All the lads that come through Predators have got good skills, I think.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned obviously Moggy and Gaz Pilot. Me and Simon trained with them to probably 2009 at SBG before they transitioned on. Obviously, Gaz was one of the main sort of assistant coaches back then, and one of the first guys that I spoke to on the phone and signed in at SBG when I first started, and always a dead polite guy. And even still to this day, when we do cross paths or anything like that, obviously he settled down, family. Same with Mike, it just happens. Moggy, I remember sparring with him at SBG when I was green as hell, and he would just box my face off. It wasn't pleasant. And then obviously I seen him years later when he sort of made it back through Predators and was raising back up the ranks, and he was just known as a killer. And he still is now. Obviously, he takes a bit more time off now between fights, getting older and stuff. But he's looking to come back. We try and match him every now and then.
Yeah, he'll love me saying this, but he's the worst round I ever have. And he takes it easy on me as well. I know he does. We have that kind of mutual respect where I don't throw leather at him because I know that he could just put me to sleep if he wanted. He's horrendous to spar. Everyone says the same thing. He's minging. He's a nightmare to spar, an absolute nightmare, and it's just so natural to him as well. I've done some boxing with his first boxing coach, and that guy was saying when Moggy first came through the door, he'd never done no boxing before, but he was straight away could just fight. He's one of them natural fighters.
Did you train at Predators before it moved to where it is now, like 10 years ago? Was you at that?
I think I went one time at the old gym, and then but when we went down the next time, the gym had moved. But I wasn't part of that old gym. No, not really.
I sort of went to Predators when SBG went on. Sort of went under in the late 2009, early 2010. That's sort of when I went to Predators and was moving around gyms because of work and stuff like that. I was with Gav in the old one, and I literally still remember it like how it was low ceilings, dingy, and loads of different rooms because obviously the way it was built. And then he was speaking to me, "Oh, I've got this new setup that I'm looking at. Hopefully they'll be in there soon." And it was literally black and white, the difference, and you knew his vision, what he wanted for his team. He got the cage, the boxing ring, big mat space, good changing rooms, weights. He did everything for his fighters off his own back. He knew what his vision was, and he knew what was next to come, which I sort of give him props for, because at that time, late 2010s, early 2010, it was still growing. It's not where it is now, and obviously it's still growing. Still not much money in it. It definitely wasn't back then. To take that risk in sort of a massive thing and all that building work he had to put into it, it's shown his vision in the MMA in generally as well. Yeah,
definitely. He's always known what he wants. Like, he's got it written on the wall. He's got the Predators philosophy written on the wall, and like it's like a little flow diagram with all these different lines coming off, like teach excellence, reach excellence. It's clear. It's very clear. Like, it's very clear. Like you say, he's got a clear vision that he kind of instills in anyone that spends enough time training under him.
Definitely.
I think as well, like back in sort of the early sort of 2010s, running a gym at that time as well was a massive risk because it was still seen as like a taboo sport, and jiu-jitsu wasn't known. So like there's very hard to market, very hard to sort of make an income from a gym. So that kind of dedication to pushing a gym like that is like, you can only be applauded for it really as well.
Yeah, I remember when I first went, like, it wasn't rare to be like 2-3 people on the mats turning up for an evening class. It's like now that would have been like 2012 time, 2013, not a million years ago. We could get there and there might be 5 people, but now you'd love if there's space. The mats are hammered all the time. There's bloody 50, 60 people training in every night coming into multiple classes, and that's a testament to like the hard work he's put in over the years and the growth as well. Like, I remember being in the gym every day through like the Conor McGregor era, if you can call it that, when MMA kind of jumped up a notch in relation to the other sports and got that like mainstream kind of appeal. I remember like week in, week out, we're just seeing numbers bump up. But like, because as this like phenom took over the world, it was Conor McGregor. And so I suppose everyone in the MMA world has a little bit of a debt owed to Mr. McGregor, because I definitely noticed a big bump in the numbers in the gym.
Yeah.
Around that time.
It's weird because I've been around the game for so long now, and I used to go to my bookies before sort of online betting came on, and I was like putting like a paper bet on for the UFC. I could literally just write and say, for argument's sake, Velasquez to win by knockout or something like that on a sheet, and just put, because they had little odds and stuff like that. And the guy was like, UFC, what's this? And I just looked at him and was like, you wait, mate, this bubble's ready to burst. And McGregor was the guy, especially in Europe, in the UK. Obviously, people hate his antics and the way he is sometimes, and I completely agree. He's a bit of a knob. But
can be. Definitely can be.
But he has got a good heart. You can see sometimes he's just... He has this sort of image of what he should be sometimes, and I think that takes over. And a lot of people can be faulted for that, but he did great for the sports, for jiu-jitsu and MMA, because I think it blew both of them up. Even if he now fights once every 2 years, I think the buzz around it will keep on elevating it, and maybe we get fighters from that. Like, you've got James Gallagher, who's in Bellator. He's sort of the same sort of vibe. Obviously, he's not as big, but he gets the Irish buzzing for that. We've got a lot of fighters up and coming.
There's plenty of people, plenty of fighters out there doing the best Conor McGregor impression week in, week out, all over social media. You don't have to look too far to see a few of them.
Either do take that walk.
Oh, it's
hey,
cringy.
that's Vince's walk. That's Vince McMahon's walk. That's not McGregor's.
Well, see people try and do they'll stare into the camera and do the Conor McGregor face and puff their chest out. Oh, come on, man. Turn up to shows in it. That's the best when you see like an amateur fighter turn up to a show in a pinstripe and shit, a tuxedo on and shit. Oh, come on. I get the marketing thing, but
well, like Hassan Hussein, he's done that a few times.
Is that one of his tricks? I know I've seen it about. Hassan, he can pull it off.
So we're quite fortunate in the UK in relation to the level of fighters that are in the UFC right now. Like Darren Till's headlining one of the Fight Islands. You've got Mike Grundy, D.K. Molly McCann, Chris Fishgold, and that's just from the top of my head. And then you've got the Welsh, Jack Shaw, which we had his dad on a few weeks ago in the podcast. Marshman, Brett Johns, the crew coming through, and there's still like probably you to follow in due course.
Lerone as well. Lerone, another Manchester lad signed to the UFC.
I can't believe we even missed him because that was top of my list yesterday when I was reviewing it all. It's crazy. You've got probably going to butcher his name now, but we've got him on next week as a guest. Modestas Paskarskis. He was the light heavyweight champion in Cage Warriors.
Right. Okay.
He's making his debut next month as well. So the elevation of the sport will hopefully see, and the BT Sport back in it as well, hopefully will take us to the next level and maybe pop another bubble in due course. But let's move on to your pro career. You decided to make the transition to pro. I'm probably going to butcher this name as well. Jacob Grzgorek?
Grzgorek, I think it is. Grzgorek.
What was that like, taking the transition from sort of 3 minutes and 5 3-minute rounds to going to a decision in that 3-5s?
It felt, to be fair, if you've watched that fight, it wasn't like he was. I always say this: he was the perfect opponent. If I could fight him week in, week out, no disrespect to the lad, but he's the perfect opponent for someone that wants to try and get the striking going because he's tough as nails. He's not got super high volume what he throws back, and he just keeps coming, just absorbs everything that you throw at him. So he does a really good job of making other people look good. It's like so. If it was like a back and forth war for my first like 3-5 minute rounder, I reckon it might have been tough. But you know what it's like when you're training and when you're in control of a fight or a situation, you don't kind of get the same kind of tired. But it was a good fight. I still to this day, that's probably my favourite fight that I've ever had. Like I just got into it. That was I'd not fought for 18 months. I'd broken thumb and a shin since my last amateur fight to my first pro fight. And I managed to like get three good rounds under my back and under my belt, and let loads of good shots go. Like get good experience. I managed to land some elbows, some knees, some punches, some kicks. Did a bit of grappling, but it was just a perfect pro debut. If I could go back in time and do that fight all over again, I'd love to. It was class. Proper good memory.
Like 6 years ago?
From my career. Yeah, 6 years ago. Madness. Been a pro for 6 years. Had like 8 fights. I'm a lazy professional fighter.
I wouldn't say that, Sam, at all, because we'll talk in it later. Some of the injuries that you've had have been fucking horrible, but we'll touch on that a bit later because that's a whole story, and I think a lot of people will look into that and go, that would put anyone off fighting. But we'll go through it on the card. We'll go in chronological order. So next up was Reece Street. A lot of people in the game know who Reece is, and it's one of them things where you have opponents set up and then last minute someone pulls out and you take Reece's game. Reece will always fight anyone. Maybe the question for this one is, what was that like sort of mentally going for one opponent?
Right. Terrifying. I've never been, that was probably the most nervous that I've been ahead of a fight, fighting Reece. Because obviously everyone knows who he is, everyone knows what he's about, everyone knows that he can punch as well. Everyone knows that he's knocked a few people out. And everybody knows that everyone knows that you should beat him. You know, he's there to be beat. That's what he's a journeyman. He's there to be beat, but he's not scared to let his hands go, and he's put a good few people to kip. And I think before I fought him, if I remember right, I think he'd either 3 or 4 weeks before he had just put somebody out with like a left hook and proper like put him out. So I'm thinking, shit, I'm going to have to fight this guy on the last minute. Only like, I think 5 days or something, the opponent changed. I was thinking, shit, he's like, I should beat him. But, and the thing is with them guys, if they land one punch on you or land a, say you try to take them down and they sprawl on you, and even just a small like little victory in the fight for them, to an experienced and a highly touted prospect, that's, to me, that's a loss. You know, you shouldn't be going in there and getting the job done like clean as a whistle, take him down, finish him, hit him, make him quit rapid, get out there, get your money, on to the next one. But luckily, that's how it went. But ahead of it, you don't know that. Yeah, I was thinking, I know he always throws them wheel kicks. I hope that doesn't land. I hope he doesn't, just swing at me and catch me slipping. And it was a mental ordeal that going into that fight. I always tell lads that have been, a few other lads at my gym, been matched up against him or his team in the last few years. And I always tell them, like, be nervous for it. You probably should be nervous. These are like high risk fights, low reward fights. You don't really gain nothing from beating them, but there's a massive risk. Like if one of them guys knocks you out, like that'll play tricks in your own brain. Never mind what the community thinks of it, if you will, or the MMA scene thinks of it. I don't ever want to fight any of them journeymen again. I'd rather fight the hardest fight in Britain than one of them journeymen. They're horrible fights.
I'm sure you was at the show, or at least some of the team was, when Rob Sinclair brought his show back in Burnley, probably about 4 years ago now.
Burnley brought.
Reese was against Carl Fowler.
That was I was there, man. I was there. It's horrible.
I was on commentary, and I was like, "This should be straightforward. It was given as the Carl Fowler hometown, given the win, sort of making his return into the pro ranks." And Reese got him the guillotine, and I stood up and I was like,
he dropped. I think he caught him with a punch as well before it. Like I think he hurt him with a punch and managed to jump on the guillotine. I couldn't believe it.
I never thought. I think you would get probably 1,000,000 to 1 for Reese to finish any fight by submission.
Carl's really, really good as well. He's a brilliant fighter, really, really technical, fit as a fiddle. You know, he's got sick hands, fast hands, good grappling. Massive shock that I couldn't believe that when that happened.
Just shows like what you said about how dangerous he is, and if you take your foot off the gas or you look past him or anything, like you say, clip, and then maybe Carl went in sort of like just flight or fight mode, shot, and then the guillotine's there, and props to Reese getting that W.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, I'm pretty sure I definitely was there that night, and I'm pretty sure I spoke to Carl. Obviously, we've got mutual friends and we know each other, so I spoke to Carl beforehand, and he'd kind of laid out everything that I just said before about, like, he was proper nervous going into the fight. He didn't know how it was going to go. He knew he should win and all that. It's touch and go in them fights. Like, you've got so much to lose and just nothing to gain if you beat them. That's the thing. Like, if you beat one of them, everyone's just like, what's next then? Like, no one even gives you a pat on the back for beating them guys.
No, they're sort of almost like overlooked, aren't they? That's where the risk is.
Exactly. Just 1 sec, lads. Let me turn this fan off. I'm almost shivering.
So, the next fight, obviously, you had Jack at the amateur ranks, which is, in hindsight, probably one of the biggest fights in amateur MMA UK history, if you look the way you two careers have gone from now. But next up for you is Team Hammer's Brian Crichton. Stocky, can hit hard, well-rounded. What was that like? Obviously, that's a big step up from previous fights, especially with the way he fights and the amount of power he's got. What was that like?
Yeah, I think he's submitted black belts as well in the past, so I couldn't really see a clear-cut way of beating him, because I knew he had I think he's had 57 kickboxing fights. I might be butchering that, but I'm sure at the time there was people was telling me that he's had loads of Muay Thai fights before he got into MMA. I think he boxed in the army as well. He was a soldier at the time. I think he's still a soldier, but I know he was an active soldier when I fought him. But yeah, he's muscled up, massive legs, big shoulders, short, stocky build. I don't think I'd fought anybody shorter than me before either. I'm only 5'7", so most people are taller than me. But he was he just comes in with them big overarm rights and left hooks. Obviously, one of them landed in the first round.
Very tough round him. I've trained him a couple of times, Crichton, and he's he's a handful. Like, he's tiny, he's fast,
don't
doesn't
stop
stop
coming
moving either.
Yeah, he got some power in them hands as well. He broke my face.
Was it that fight? Was it that fight, or was it the Sheehan fight?
No, it was that fight. Yeah, it's the first round. He caught me with a left hook, and big hard left hook, rocked my world. I remember it caught me on the chin, and it's like it kind of punched me around the ring. So he's whacked me, and I've just gone flying all the way around the cage. He's chasing after me, and I've gone like this as he's like stepped in to finish me off, and luckily like ran face first into the top of my head. So I've like kind of headbutted him to the floor, and it gave me a few seconds to get my wits about me, because it was just chaos in my brain at that point. I've been hit that hard. There was like white noise in my ears. I couldn't see anything. It was all fuzzy and stuff. Turned out that punch split my jaw there and broke it there as well. Like, one punch broke my jaw in 2 places, and then it was just a case of stay away from him for the rest of the fight. Run.
It's crazy to think, because it sort of reminded me, watching the fight back, that it was sort of like the round between Maynard and Edgar, where the round was, he hit you hard, he was chasing you, he's trying to get the finish, you've survived. And then the second and third round, obviously you knew something was wrong, something is hurt here. What's going through your head? The pain must be unbearable. Oh, you're still in.
Man. It wasn't. The pain wasn't. There was no real pain. I remember not. There's one point in the second round where it hurt, but I remember going back to the corner after the first round. So after it just happened, and I remember I could feel like my jaw was out of place. Like, it was like a bite on the gum shield, and it was like it's in your ears. It's attached to your ears, isn't it, your jaw? So it's just crunching and stuff in there. So I spoke to Gav, and Gav's like, he said he put a towel on my face, and one side of the towel was like moving an inch like this. So like, because my jaw had like sagged down at one side and go up, so it split all down that bit. It completely split all down my chin. So he's like holding my face together with a towel, and Gav's saying, "Look, I'll pull you out. I'll pull you out. You broke your jaw. Like, we need to stop the fight." And I was like, "No, give me one round, coach. Give me a round. Like, put me back in." So I've kind of gone back in for the second round, and how did it happen? He ended up taking, I think I threw a kick, and he took me down. He caught the kick, took me down against the fence. And at this point, I had not had any pain really. I knew it wasn't right, but it wasn't hurting. I think the adrenaline had just took all that away. But then as he's took me down, he's kind of got half guard, but I've got my back against the fence like this, so I'm not flat, but I'm kind of sat up. And he's wrapped my neck up with the guillotine. And you know the guillotine finish where you just drive the hips into the face on the fence? Like that horrific, like, shag the face into the fence finish. Yeah, he did that, and all my jaw was just like, I remember that proper hurt. That's probably one of the worst pains that I've had in my life. You can see it on my face in the video. I'm like, I remember thinking, like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely insane. Shouldn't be doing this.
It's like the whole thing that, do you want to be a fucking fighter? And like, you just push through that. You knew.
I remember thinking at that point, right, he's got my head wrapped up, and he's like cranking on my face and pulling it all over the place, and my jaw's just going with it. And I remember thinking, 300 quid I'm getting for this. 300 quid I'm getting paid for this. I remember it clear as day. I've got a few from that fight. Most of my fights are a bit of a blur. I don't really remember much, but that one, I think because it was so drastic what had happened, I've got a few really clear memories. Like, and I remember thinking, this is ridiculous. I remember thinking, 300 quid, I should not be going through this. But yeah, the last round, it was just a case of, get away from him, try and win on points.
Well, I can imagine.
Didn't want him anywhere near me.
So what was that like afterwards then? Like, sort of the adrenaline drops, and imagine the pain sort of settling in. Like, what was you thinking? What was going through your mind about at that point?
It was hard work. I couldn't really speak. I remember being in the back, and jaw like swollen up straight away a fair bit, and it dislocated on both sides. Dislocated both sides, broke there on the side, and split down the middle. So like, I couldn't like control it to speak either. Couldn't swallow. Couldn't do anything, like, because you use your jaw muscles to swallow. I found out couldn't do that, so I just like sat like blood and snot and piss flowing out my mouth, just going everywhere. Pain was pretty intense then, but I managed to get. I think my mate actually drove me to A&E, and I remember on the way there just saying, or trying to say I'm glad I won. Like, this would be much worse if I'd have got beat. If I
Oh,
was
yeah.
going home off a loss to the hospital and my face split, like, that would have been hard to deal with. But I was still on a bit of a high because I knew straight away, like, that's a cool story. Like, you got your face broken in the first round. Yeah, I like that. That's one to tell the grandkids. So I was kind of like just thinking that, and that kind of got me through the horrific pain that I was in. But yeah, it was a few months of I had little bands. They don't really wire a jaw shut, I think, anymore, but they like put little elastic bands in there, so I could get like that, and I had it for a few weeks. Had to liquid diet for 3-4 weeks. Yeah, it was shit.
Like you say, because you got the W, it's, even though you would rather that have not happened, it's sort of like worth it to a certain degree. It makes it fit, because if you would have got a loss, you'd be like, what the fuck is this even for? But
yeah, might have never fought again after getting jaw broke for 300 quid and getting beat. Like, that might have been enough. That might have been right. Enough's enough. It's silly. But on the win, it's like,
so what's the craziest thing is you're only out for like what, 6 months?
6 months, I think. I remember I've got a video on. I found it on I got an iPhone recently, so I went to Android for a couple of years. So I logged back into the cloud and I had all my old stuff on there. I was looking at the dates and I was hitting pads on I think it was, I fought him, say, like mid-March or 5th of March, and before March was out, I was hitting pads again. Like, within like 2-3 weeks, I could hit pads. I healed up proper quick. They did a really good job fixing it. The swelling went down, and I was back training before the end of the month. Like, it was mad. Looking back, I can't believe it, but it healed up quick, and I fought again probably 4 months, 5 months later, something like that.
I think that sort of goes to show that anybody in this game, they've got something else there, like mentally, that sort of gives you the little edge above, I say, just people that don't train combat sports, really.
Yeah. Especially once you've been, like, say, you've competed a few times and had to dig deep. Like, I've had a few of my amateur fights where it was like I was running on fumes. You know what I mean? Like, once you know you've kind of got that in you that you can get past where you feel like you've got nothing left. Like, it's almost like it fights ahead of that. What's the worst that can happen? Like, what is the worst that can happen now? Like, I can't really get any worse than having my face snapped in a fight. Like, that's already happened now. So
yeah,
that's what everyone's scared of, isn't it? If you think, if you go speak to someone who's got the first fight coming up, like, what's the worst thing you think could happen? Oh, get my face broken. Like, happened now. I've already done that. It's not that bad. I was training in 3 weeks. Not that bad. Do it again.
Right. So you return in 6 months, FCC 17 against, probably another name I'm going to butcher, Ayano Raducanu.
Yes, near enough.
It's French, does that sound right?
Romanian, I think.
Romanian.
I think it's Romanian.
So you take that fight, you finish it in the first round. He's got it's a TKO finish. Obviously, what's going through your head leading up to that fight? Obviously, with the back of your mind that your last fight went that way it did with your jaw, and then thinking that you could go back to that way. Obviously, you don't know how strong your jaw's going to be, and then you get that W and the elation. What's sort of going through your head both ways?
It was a weird one, that, because that was a late replacement as well. He was I think he took the fight on like 4 days' notice. That guy. I was meant to fight. What's it called? Ginger hair, like curly ginger hair.
Conor Hayden?
Brent Crawley. Brent Crawley. Supposed to fight Brent Crawley on that card, and he pulled out for whatever reason. I think a week before or 2 weeks before, and he was scrambling trying to find someone last minute. So Brent would have been a tough fight, like a real tough fight. He's like a veteran, been around for years. But then when it came to it, I ended up with this. I think it's Yanuk Raducanu, how you say his name. And it was a really disappointing fight. If it's on YouTube, you can see me like throw my gum shield after, because I didn't get nothing happened in it. Like, I've kicked him in the leg. We've come out, circled around. I kicked him in the leg. Kind of, he came rushing at me. I shoved him past me. Landed a bit of a combination on him, and I could see his face change straight away. Like, I think he might have been a bit of a journeyman. He'd had a few fights where he'd gone the distance, but they was kickboxing fights. I think he'd never really done much in MMA before. I've landed 1 or 2 shots. I remember throwing an elbow on it, and it missed by about that much, but it whistled right past his head, really, really fast, like close, super close. And I seen him get like panic eyes a little bit, and he starts like shaking his hand out like he'd hurt his hand. And I thought, oh shit, he's gonna give up here. Like, I've come back from all this. Like, over the last few months, it had been like a mental ordeal to get myself back up, to go back in the cage after all that. And this guy was gonna like give up after pretending that his hand when he'd not even landed a punch, and I was threw my gum shield out. The wet referee waved it off, threw my gum shield, sulking and stuff, like storming around the cage like I'd had a bad day. And then Moggy came in, he sorted me out. He came in and said, you can see it on the video, comes in and goes, Sam, you could have been in an ambulance here. It's like, yeah, good point. You just won.
Fair enough. So 6 months return, obviously didn't get the win the way you would want to, but it shows your journey. You're back in there. The nerves must have been horrific, even stepping back in the cage at that point, more for your well-being and your jaw and stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I wasn't sure how it was going to hold up. I'm not in sparring. I remember in sparring ahead of that fight. I didn't want to be taking too many shots. So I was kind of like light sparring with most people until I wanted to give it at least 6 months at least to heal up before I start getting into wars in the gym. So I really, with that fight, I wanted to take a few punches. I wanted to see if it was going to hold up and stuff, like if everything was all right in my face, and just didn't get a chance to. But next fight I did.
Next up for you was only a couple months later, December, Tanko FC 2. This one didn't go your way, but you're back out there in a tough competition. How was this fight more for you? Obviously, it wasn't the win you got in September that you wanted, but did this feel more gratifying, even though it was the first pro loss?
Yeah, it was like my first loss in years at that point, because I'd not lost since I had the C-class fights right at the start of my career when I didn't really know what was going on. So it was like my first real loss, if you will. And but if you watch the fight, I did all right. I was doing pretty well. I was landing good shots with some good low kicks. But that kid's just proper tough. Like James McLean, he's a veteran. He's fought good guys, and he's really tough. And I got a bit cocky as well. I think I was winning the fight pretty clearly, I thought, and I've gone for like a spinning back elbow or a spinning back fist or something, and he's just like latched onto my back. I'd just dropped him about 30 seconds before. I felt fully in control of the fight, and threw like this spinning elbow, and he's just like clamped onto my back and had the rear naked choke on before I even knew what was going on. It's like, it was a bittersweet, you know what I mean? Because I was happy that I'd managed to get back out there, and I had a real fight, and I'd looked good against a good opposition in the first round and a half. I felt like my striking was probably the best it has been in that fight, apart from the pro debut, but the level of opponent kind of brought some nice exchanges out of me and stuff. But going from being fully in control of the fight, like winning it felt pretty easy at the time. I was just in that zone where you just can't miss, and everything that I do is landing. To all of a sudden having like a good grappler on my back, like locking the choke up, it just took me really by surprise. And he had this tap before I even knew what had gone on. Like, he didn't even have his hooks in. He's just like got my back, thrown his choke on, and I panicked and just tapped. Like, it came out of the blue. It proper shot me. Taught me a valuable lesson though. Don't take your eye off the prize until the job's done. Like, proper got clever with that spinning back elbow. I don't even practice them. Don't even do them in the gym. Like, don't even train them. Just thought, fuck it. Seems like a good idea. Learn that lesson.
Sometimes you just gotta let it fly though. If you're feeling the mood for it.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I was probably feeling myself at the time, thinking, yeah, I can't miss. It's gonna land. It's got it. Everything else has, and turns out it didn't.
Like you say, he's fought tough guys. Looking at his record here, and Sean Tobin, Andy Young twice, Phil Pott, Walsh, yourself, Golding, Lerone Murphy before. Obviously, he made his way to the UFC. So tough guy.
Man. He's good.
What I remember watching you around this point is you're super comfortable with your stand up. You're super confident in your stand up, and you're sort of moving around. A lot like sort of Dominic Cruz, that sort of feel. You're very rangy, you're fast on your feet, you don't stay in the same place for too long, you're picking the right combinations. Obviously, we talked about earlier, you transitioning and you was a heavy grappler and then you went into striking. It seems to have gone very, very heavy. Obviously, you can grapple for fun, but you're so confident in your striking now. What's that like, being so confident when a few years before, it was alien to you?
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. I loved that period. It was mint. Like, all them first pro fights was being able to like you say, really like become known, if you will, as a striker, and even like accept it in my own brain that like my best attribute is probably my striking, or it was at that point anyway. Like, Yeah, it was good. It was a good place to be, but it all comes from the coaching that I had. Like them the fundamentals that Gav put into me through them early years of my pro career, like really stood me in good stead. Like you say about the feet moving all the time and never being in the same spot. If that's like a general rule of combat sports, like if you look at the best guys, their feet never stop moving. They don't sit and duck. It's rare that you'll find like any high level boxer, kickboxer, wrestler, jiu-jitsu fighter, any of them guys with slow feet, fast feet and fast footwork and controlled, balanced movement is, for me, that's like what underpins all good combat, whether that's striking or grappling. Like, and I just sort of applied it to boxing and kickboxing for MMA as best I could, really.
Nice. So next up after that, so it's December, it's literally on my birthday, your next one, 15th of April 2017. You face Dylan Sheehan. This is a great win, this. Dylan's no joke. Dylan's a great fighter. You get the finish in the third round. What was it like to sort of finish a guy with your strikes and obviously so late on, so you've still got that pop in your step to get the finish?
Yeah, I did feel really fit for that one. I was proper fit. My gas tank was like probably the best like it ever has been, but I just couldn't get my timing down in that fight for some reason. It felt pretty awkward all the way through the first 2 rounds. So I remember coming out in between rounds saying to Gav, I can't find him. I can't get near him to hit him. It's like I had like a bit of apprehension, maybe because of the fight before. When I did commit on something, I got choked. I got submitted straight away. I just felt like I couldn't let my shots go that much. So if you watch it, I ended up I grappled him quite a bit, took him down in every round, and like won the rounds mainly through like top control and just like dominated position. Got the stoppage on the ground. It was like a ground and pound stoppage. So yeah, it was like I was talking about striking becoming such a prominent part of my game, but in that fight, I didn't really get to show much of it. I couldn't let it go for whatever reason.
Still holding that punch though.
Yeah, and like you say, like I was saying earlier, it's when you've got that grappling in your back pocket, it really is a blessing. Sometimes you're not always gonna be on your game with one attribute, so it's nice to be able to flow to something else, or at least fall back to something else that you can get the job done with. I think a lot of fighters, especially what I've noticed recently, like the last few years, maybe because of Conor McGregor's influence, I see a lot of fighters like do loads of striking but don't develop the grappling fundamentals that they need to win MMA fights at high levels. Like if you matched up against a good MMA fighter, being a good kickboxer is just not enough. It's not enough nowadays. Even at the amateur level nowadays, a few lads from my gym find that out. They've got great hands, they've got great kicks, great movement, great everything. But if they've got that one attribute missing in the game, it can really hold you back in the way MMA is nowadays. You've just got to be doing everything. You have to be well-rounded, even as an amateur. I was probably lucky in my amateur days that I didn't come up against anyone that could strike really well and stop takedowns, because I would have been in a pickle. I would have been getting fucking punched up.
Are you sort of noticing a sort of bit of a trend with, especially with like the rise of Conor McGregor? Like a lot of the younger fighters, they're coming in sort of with their hands down and trying to have that sort of that stance with it.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. You can't be doing that straight away. Like Conor can do that because he can fight good. He can fight with his hands up. He can fight technically proficient. Like he's got the fundamentals. He can't just come in and have flash with no fundamentals. It's not the way to do it, I don't think. And I think there'll probably be a running, probably already is. I don't follow like domestic MMA as religiously as I should, but there probably is like week in, week out guys getting knocked out on shows where they look like they've got the chin up and giving it the karate stance and all that, and they're getting caught. Like you need to build that stuff on, in my opinion, build that on top of solid defensive fundamentals and controlled movement. Like then you can let that stuff come out, but not until then. I think you should work on I always say to guys, like, look, young lads in the gym come in and the first day they want to do spinning back kicks or they want to do wheel kicks and stuff like that. Like, just learn how to throw a jab first. Just jab first. Learn how to maybe catch a jab or slip a jab, and then maybe we might look at a 1-2. But let's not be doing, Imanari rolls on our first day and shit like that. You know what I mean? Same in grappling. You see in grappling, don't you, all the time? You see the white belts doing bolos and fucking cartwheel passes, Imanari rolls. don't know how to, they don't know how to like close the guard, but they
or they just physically can't because they've not been trained to. I've seen a lot of people which can't even sit on the back ankles when they first start out, and 5 years later, it's common sense. It seems normal. Next up is your final pro fight as of right now. Is Paul McBain. That was on Cage Warriors.
I've had two since then. Might not be on the record. Might be on
Ryan Hold'em after that.
Yeah, that's him.
Do you know what?
Corey Tate was cancelled.
Sherdog for you.
Sherdog, am I only 5-2 on Sherdog?
Yeah, 5.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, 6 and 2 on Tapology. I knew Tapology was better anyway. So we've got Paul McBain. This is I think we discussed this probably around the time you got signed by Cage Warriors. Obviously taking the step up. What was it like, sort of stepping on this bigger stage, and then the doctor stoppage after the round 1? What sort of going through your head for that?
I moved up a weight as well. I've been at bantamweight for a few fights before that. I moved up to featherweight. Probably a bad idea looking back. Probably shouldn't have done that. And I was doing a lot of strength training at the time. I was focusing heavily on my grappling. I remember thinking in that Dylan Sheehan fight when I couldn't let my hands go, and I thought, if that happens again, I want to be super confident in my grappling. So I focused a bit more on grappling than striking, and concentrated on putting the weight on to move up to featherweight full time. That was my plan at the time. Doing like compound lifts, but like pretty bodybuilder styles, getting strong and getting pretty big. And it therefore like cost me that fight. I think that I didn't feel confident going in with my striking because I felt a bit slow and I felt a bit stiff and a bit sluggish and compared to how I have been in the past when I've, like I said, been down at bantamweight and I've been concentrating on speed rather than strength. I didn't feel great in that fight. I had a few injuries going in. Don't want to make excuses. Like, he clearly beat me, but I had bad shin, I had a bad hand, so I could only throw one hand. I couldn't throw my right low kick. Felt slow. Felt a bit heavy. He was really tall. I was really short. Like, it was just a bit of a shitstorm. I think I was splitting up with the bird at the time as well. And my ex-girlfriend, I was going through like all that kind of shit. That was in the back of my mind. I just it was a bad fight camp, bad time, probably should have pulled out, you know what I mean? But if looking back, should have pulled out of the fight, shouldn't have done it. But did it, didn't go my way, got clipped with a big right hand. Eyeball was looking out here. Got stopped in between rounds by the doctor. It looked like I've got a scar on my eye there, and it looked like the orbital had broke. I thought, that's just fucking great. One fight break my jaw, one fight break my eye. Got like a glass face. Turns out it didn't break, it was just swollen, but I understand the stoppage. I'm not complaining with the stoppage. It looked bad. Like, it was a pretty brutal swelling, and it came on rapid as well. Got punched and was swollen up in 2 seconds.
What's happened? Obviously, we know you returned to Cage Warriors in May 2019, so just over a year ago. Are you still signed with Cage Warriors, or are you free agent now?
I'm pretty sure I'm still signed with them. Like, I spoke after that fight, after that McBain fight. I spoke with Ian Dean at Cage Warriors, and I told him that I needed to get a shoulder surgery. Like, I'd been doing a bit of grappling, and I'd done a grappling comp a few weeks after it, and I remember digging for an underhook and feeling something pop in my shoulder, in my right shoulder. It was a slap tear, labrum tear in my right shoulder, so that needed fixing. So I told him I'm probably going to be out at least for the rest of the year at this point. Like, it's going to be a long time before I fight again. So he was cool. He's always been brilliant, Ian. Any dealing I've ever had with him, Ian Dean at Cage Warriors, has been class. Like, he's always proper. He looks after you. You can tell he wants your best interests at heart. Obviously, he wants you on his show, but he wants you to be at your. He wants you to be at your best when you are. So he said, take as much time as you want. Obviously, you need to get that shoulder fixed. So that went and got that done. Got the labrum tear. I was in a sling for a few weeks. Got back training, and then probably about 18 months elapsed. I've been to America in the meantime as well, and did some training over at Team Alpha Male, and I was mainly doing grappling over in America. I went around Southern Cali and went to some of the jiu-jitsu gyms, trained at Atos and places like that, some of the better jiu-jitsu gyms, which was mint. Really enjoyed that. I was a bit undecided whether I'd fight again at this point, because I'd had obviously multiple injuries leading up. Oh, that's what I didn't tell you before that last fight as well. I've been knocked out a few times in training. I definitely caught some concussions. Might be a case he knocked me out of a wheel kick. I'm putting him on blast. He knocked me out of a wheel kick, the bugger, in the last round of sparring that I'd done. one of the later rounds of sparring that I'd done ahead of that camp. Got a good few concussions in that fight camp, so it was just a proper shitstorm. So after that loss, just was undecided what the future held. I knew I had these injuries, knew I weren't sure about fighting anymore. I had the big fuck off swelling on my eye. It was a mess. So I took a bit of time away from fighting, especially away from sparring, any sort of kickboxing sparring. I wanted to give my head a rest, really. I wanted to give my brain a bit of a rest. And then so probably about 18 months had gone by, and spoke to Ian again, actually, about fighting again. I started, all this time had gone past, did a few sparring sessions, felt like I was feeling a bit better about the whole situation. And Ian said, if you want to take a fight on a smaller show before you jump back into Cage Warriors after all that time out, you're more than welcome to. You'll still have your same deal in place if and when you want to come back. So again, it's proving again how much he looks after the guys. And then just so happened that Adam Tafe at FCC dropped a message in my inbox saying, I forget who it was, but one of the guys pulled out from the title fight, the Bantamweight title fight, in 5 weeks' time at that point. So I was like, right, the stars have aligned, like that's what it is. So I'm going to fight for the title on FCC. So all systems would go ahead of that one. Ended up knocking him out in the first round, which was mint.
So with this, what going, Simon?
I
was just saying, you can't argue with that result with that.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
It was a good one. Like after not really, I'd not really done much sparring really. Like in that whole 18 months before that fight, I'd probably sparred 5 or 6 times, like until the camp started. Really, maybe even less. Like I only had 4 weeks to prepare. I weren't expecting my timing to be down that much by, if after all that time out of striking, normally you need a good few hard rounds before you really get your eye in and stuff. And so just luckily I got him with the left hook after, I think it's only 32 seconds or something. Caught him coming in with a nice left hook, and that was it.
How did you find?
Go on, sir.
How did you find the sort of return to sparring then after you mentioned the concussions and stuff? Like, not too many like fighters that I've come across anyway tend to take the break off after the concussion. They just sort of dust it off and get straight back in there without realising the sort of long-term effects of that.
Yeah, I've always been pretty conscious of that. I've always worried about that brain trauma stuff. It's because I speak for a living. Like I don't fight for a living. I coach for a living. Like I don't get paid anywhere near enough from fighting to call that my job. You know what I mean? Fighting is just a little bonus that I sometimes do here and there. My main source of income that I support myself with is always coaching every day. So if I'm slurring my words and stuttering before every sentence, like it's not going to lead to a successful coaching career. I don't think. Like I need my wits about me. I need to be able to think critically and articulate myself reasonably well. So when I did get that big bang on the eye in the Cage Warriors fight, I noticed I was like a bit slow to speak, and I'd like sometimes like stutter at the start of sentences and shit. So that really scared me at the time. I was thinking, I've had enough for this. I need to. So what I was thinking really is I'll move to grappling, like get really into grappling. Doing a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments at the time. I was picking up plenty of golds and stuff like that. I thought maybe that's the way to go. Maybe just do no gi, do gi, work through the belts, and become like a good black belt competitor. That was the main goals at the time. That was kind of setting myself to keep myself on a path of progression, if you will. Because you just take away a fighting career after kind of giving so much to it for years, can leave you a bit lost. But yeah, after probably 12 months of no sparring really, no kickboxing sparring, I jumped into a few sessions and just kind of, I think having all the time off the weights as well helped. Like I wasn't doing too much weightlifting in that time. Felt nice and loose, and probably a few injuries that I had from like striking related injuries, shoulders and elbows and all that. Probably had a bit of time to heal up. So I felt fine. I felt sharp when I got back in. I was reasonably lighter than I had been. I was fit from grappling, and yeah, just kind of came back naturally. Sometimes a break's what you need if you fall out of love or you have some issues with something.
Yeah.
It's a good transition, that really, because you've just become the professional. So you've won a professional belt at FCC, the bantamweight title there. That's a good little sort of knock in the cap. That's something you always escalate to, try and win a pro belt, and obviously work up the ranks from there. Maybe you go back to K-Warriors. It depends on you now and where your mindset's at. But the it's a good thing you mentioned there about teaching and coaching. Big part of your income, big part of your life, social aspects, teaching sort of the grassroots and the next sort of crop at predators and maybe the world. What's that like, being a teacher and a coach? How much do you enjoy that?
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it, man. I find myself like, not recently because I've not been in the gym, but when the gyms are open, like I find myself sometimes midway through a day thinking, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. Like people like turn up, guys that I've been training for years will turn up and pay me, and it just feels like they pay me to hang out with me for an hour and that. We do some pads because I'd be in the gym if I was getting paid or if I wasn't. So the fact that people pay for my knowledge, if you will, and my time and the drills that I've developed over the years, or I'll teach them some of Gav's drills, or we work through whatever we're working through that day. Like, but I love coaching. Like, it's a dream job to me. I've always, since I got into MMA, I always kind of envision myself owning a gym at some point in the future. Anyway, like that definitely will be a path that I go down in the future. I'm not sure when, but I definitely would like to run my own gym. I think I'd really enjoy that. I think I'd do a good job at it as well. Like, wouldn't mind working with like young kids or troubled kids, or try and put people on the right path through martial arts, and be a bit of a work as a mentor to people.
Yes, I think Simon can sort of relate to you a lot with regard to that. He's got his own place now at Hive, and I think you both will agree, the people that you bring in as clients or customers, whatever you want to call them, they become your friends. They become part of your social circle.
Therefore, 100%. I'd say in fact, tomorrow night, Saturday, what day is it? Friday, isn't it? Tomorrow night, we're having like a few beers, and that's just all lads from the gym. Like all the lads from the gym are like really good mates. So I consider them they're on the same level as my mates that I've been mates with since I was a young'un. You know what I mean?
Well, when you're having these few beers, you can watch this back because it's getting released on the Saturday, so you can watch it back and
imagine.
But
put
Simon,
it on my telly in my front room and watch my interview. Jesus Christ.
Simon, what do you think about the coaching side and the social side?
No, like I completely agree. Like you spend more time with them than anybody else through the week. I just think the hardest thing to sort of get over is the sort of the payment thing, like the payment aspect of it, because he's sort of, like you said, it feels like they're hanging out with you, but then you've got to remember that they're there for your knowledge and experience.
Of course.
Like, it's not the time that they're paying for, it's your experience and knowledge that you've sort of accrued over years.
Yeah, exactly. It is like you've done an apprenticeship, haven't you? You've done an apprenticeship, you've served years in the trade, and now you kind of you're giving that back to someone. Why shouldn't people pay for it? I've paid for coaches for years. I've never been the kind of guy who I'll just have one place that I go train. Like, for example, I train at Gav's as my main gym, but I'll always fly about to different gyms, train with like Thai boxing coaches over here and the grappling coach over there and a boxing coach at the other side of town. And like, I've always paid for them to help me, and I know what you get when you pay. Like, it's different when you train with someone for free and you're just both training, or if you pay somebody to train you for an hour, like it's a different thing. Like, you have undivided attention, you have like a structured session, you have real effort coming from the other person to help you reach your goals. Whereas if you just go and training with a mate, like, you're just training with a mate, aren't you? You might not specifically be working on anything, or like, you're not going to be drilled for an hour. Whereas if you pay a coach to work with you for an hour, you expect an hour of solid coaching that you're going to take away and you've got forever. And I've kind of come to terms with that recently, like the fact that it's a valuable service that I offer. Like, there's no getting around it. I know how much people enjoy coming. I know how much I enjoy going training with people, and I can see people that leaving sessions that I've done with people, or that have come to the gym, they're leaving, they're glowing, big smile on their face, they've had a mint session, they feel like they've improved, they've learned something, they can go away and work on it in their own time. It's a win-win in it, really, for everyone. It's definitely worth the money that you hand over to train with someone.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, one of the higher profile names that you do teach, and obviously you see on social media, is Sam Aston, who plays Chesney in Coronation Street. Obviously I know Sam or Chesney,
Sam.
Sam, yeah. I'm just making sure people know I'm talking about, because you're Sam as well.
All right, yeah.
So Sam Aston, he's followed MMA for quite a long time. I've seen him at shows 5-6 years ago at FCC and stuff. He follows the game. I know he's good friends with a few of you at Predators. What's it like to sort of teach someone like that? That's sort of, obviously he's not big in the MMA game, but he's big in the sort of the celebrity world, especially in England.
Yeah, it's just like me and Sam are mates. We've been mates for like 5-6 years. We come from the same town as well. Like, he comes from where I grew up. So I've always had mutual friends with him, like, that went primary school with Sam and stuff. So we've been mates for a while. He always used to sort out my, if I had like printed up T-shirts for fights and stuff like that. He has a little side hustle that he does with his brother that runs the printing shop. So he'd always sort my stuff out for fights for that. And then about probably 4 years ago now, Sam first started coming doing a bit of training with me, maybe 3-4 years ago. But I know before that he'd done a little bit with I think it was Chris Senior. He's good mates with Chris Senior, who obviously been around the domestic scene for a while. So they used to do a little bit with him, and he's done some jiu-jitsu with me. Just last week, I did his first boxing class, actually. He did his first boxing session because we can't do any grappling at the minute. So Chesney's got hands.
Has he ever approached you and said, like, oh, I might be doing some sort of fight scene, I might be doing a bit of a scuffle, and then he's gone? Has that ever come across in conversation?
Imagine, that'd be funny. Chesney on the street just dropped someone with a nice left hook. No, I couldn't imagine. It doesn't really fit his character, does it? I don't think. He's quite a gentle soul, isn't it?
A cool little thing for maybe some actors or anything like that, because you would find it very hard for people like in Coronation or anything like that to get stunt double. So they'd have to do a lot themselves, where they could. I think they've done charity boxing storylines in the past and stuff like that. Maybe Chesney does that and you get involved training him. You could be in his corner for it. Maybe
that could be my big break. I'll make it. Hey, mom, I'm famous.
Hey, what's that video? Is it? It's in like a hood. I'm in a hood video.
Oh, what do you mean?
I'll send it you afterwards. It's like, hi mum, I'm in a hood video, and it's just like this tall guy there. I'll show it. It's pretty funny. I see it last week again. But yes, the teaching side and the coaching side, obviously a big part of you now. Is there anyone that you sort of see coming through the ranks that you've sort of been teaching and coaching and training with that could be the next big thing for Predators?
There's a few, man. We've got a few young lads, and even lads that are my age and older that are all relatively early on in their career. I know you've had Alex. Have you had Alex on this podcast before? Alex Bold.
Yeah.
Obviously, Alex is doing really well. Tom's doing really well. Tom Wright lost his last couple of fights, but that lad has got serious natural skills and he works hard as well. He's got really good movement. Tom was like my best mate growing up, so he's been kind of under my wing since he got into MMA. I started fetching him down to Predators maybe 5 years ago now, and he's just come on leaps and bounds every month on month. He's improving. Struggled in his last couple of fights, but he's only been up against top competition, and it's what we always say to each other. It's what amateurs for, isn't it? You may have them losses, get them out of the way early doors, and learn from them. Amateur them fights just expose areas that you need to put a bit of extra work into. So Tom's one to watch. We've got a young lad called Will Doyle. He's had two fights and he's got some serious skills. He's only 16, 17 I think he is now, but he's really good. He's got really good fight IQ. He's like smart, like he's been around fighting for like 10 years, like he's been training for 10 years and he hasn't. He's got a good few years experience now, but he's one to watch. Obviously Darius just had his first pro fight, Darius Maffei. Before all this stuff went on. There's a good few at our gym to look out for. Anytime anyone from our gym's out, it's always worth chucking at least one eye to watch the fight, because they're gonna be decent. We don't generally have. Oh, obviously Megan. I forget Megan Morris and Chris Price. Chris will be turning pro soon. Yeah. Megan Morris, bloody world champion at the IMAFs. She's I'd say one of the best female, probably the best female fighter I've seen as an amateur in Britain. I've not seen anyone with skills like Megan really as a female fighter, and I've seen her spar professional female fighters, and I've seen her do well in the rounds, really well. And she'll be going places. Megan, she'll do well.
The thing with Megan as well is, and the same with Chris. I think it's Chris and Cameron Chamberlain are living with each other now, so they can train. And Megan's doing the same with Charlie Burke. I speak to Charlie quite a lot, and I know them two are just constantly want to train and done the smart thing, especially with everything that's going on. They're moving together. Chris has moved in with a lad that he knows he can get up and train with. Megan will go far. Chris is doing great as well. And like Charlie and Cameron, they'll do. I think
Cameron's at our gym now. He's just joined our gym like a few months ago. He's got potential as well. Cameron, didn't know him much before he joined our gym, but he's good. He's got some skills as a lad.
I think the crop that's coming through now, and like you said about the young kid Will before, that sort of age range, and maybe the young guys like Megan and stuff, they're the crop that are scary. Like when it's weird when I started and I seen you coming through, I thought, wow, that's talent. And then you looking back at the next and the ones after that, you just go, it's scary that maybe in 10 years' time, what will be coming through then?
Yeah, it works in like a cycle. It's like a generational cycle, isn't it? When I was coming through, we're obviously looking at our generation, if you will, looking at people like GSP, thinking he's the first, he's the MMA fighter, isn't he? He's the MMA fighter. He's the perfect prototype to build model a career after, if you will. Don't have any weaknesses. Don't have a glaring strength and a glaring weakness. Blend everything together seamlessly. Be humble, be respectful. For me, they're just the perfect martial arts values that he kind of embodies. And then as best as I could, I've tried to replicate him in my own gym, you know what I mean, and try and build like someone like GSP and try and drill into the young kids. Don't put all your eggs in being Conor McGregor and knocking people out with one punch, or don't plan on being like a caricature. Just build real skills, be humble, be always willing to learn off everyone, put in proper work, don't cut corners, don't be lazy with stuff. It's only going to expose you, and it's only going to get exposed in under the bright lights. And like you say, imagine it. We've got kids now in the gym that are like 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 coming through, and mate, it's scary if you get one of them kids doing jits from that age. Got a lad, right? We've got one of our blue belts, Ash. His son's 7, I think, all right, 7 or 8, and he's running 5Ks. He's doing jits probably every day. He's got a bunch of like 4 or 5 lads that he's training with, rolling with. You should see how way they move. It's like it's just ingrained into their movement from learning to move their body. They've been learning how to grapple and wrestle, and with good guidance. I'd be scared to fight him in maybe when he's 12, 13. I don't want to catch that smoke. He's going to be good, man. Them young kids, they're the future. Them kids that are getting into it from really young, really young. They're going to be something to watch out for.
No, definitely.
What's next for you then? Obviously, you've mentioned at the beginning that you're injured at the minute and you're sort of rehabilitating. Obviously, the lockdown is one of them things at the minute. What's sort of next for you? Have you got a plan to return, or are you just going to concentrate on jiu-jitsu again?
Yeah, mate, the injury I've got's a bad one. Like, it's probably the worst injury I've had out of all of the injuries that I've done so far. Like, I've already had elbow and shoulder surgery, I've had jaw surgery, my thumb reconstructed. But this injury now, I was on a mountain bike the other week and I've gone straight up handlebars, pretty much done a front flip in the air and landed like on my feet, but my knees twisted and I've ended up tearing my ACL, partial tearing MCL and LCL, both meniscus, bruised the bones. It's a mess. My knee's a mess, so that's going to need like full ACL reconstruction and probably 12 months to rehabilitate that. So yeah, full-time coach at the minute. No real training getting done. I'm going to do some I've done a surgery for probably 2-3 months. Yeah, got to do like prehab before you do the surgery. So I'm going to do some boxing and stuff and try and work on my hands in the meantime. But yeah, I can't do no grappling, can't do any kicking. I'm just strictly boxing and boxing coaching at the minute. Can hold the iPad a little bit, but yeah, for me, there's no plan of returning anytime soon because I know the process with injuries now. I know how it goes. I've done them that many times. You can't rush them, and there's no point rushing it either. There's no point trying to make plans because you never know with something like that. Even once it's fixed, you never know if it's going to last. Like you just don't know. So I'll wait until it's fixed before I could make any plans. But yeah, that's going to be probably 12 months of this job. So I'll be there for my fight. There for my mates and any other fighters in the gym as more than I ever would be. You know what I mean? I don't have my own training to concentrate on that much, so I'll just pour it into other people as best I can.
Yeah, I think. Go on, Si.
I guess this time's perfect timing to sort of hone your coaching skills now and sort of work on that into it.
Yeah, I've done that a few times in the past where I've had, for example, like an arm in a sling or whatever. If I've had a shoulder injury, an elbow injury, and it does make you think outside the box in terms of coaching. Like I've heard John Danaher talk about it because he's got pretty like crippled knees and hips, and he'll talk about trying to like talk people and articulate people through positions and movements and techniques. That's a skill in itself. Like if you can't, most people coach by saying, "Yeah, come here, you do this," and you grab them and you do this and that. But if your body's broken, you have to understand the positioning and the mechanics of every different movement on such a deeper level that you can kind of get somebody to replicate that movement by you speaking it to them. Like that's. Yeah. I think that's a big skill that I've been working on lately. So I've been trying to teach like boxing footwork without doing it. That is hard. That's been hard to do. Like I've been trying to teach a few guys recently, like how to like pivot and split step and move off and without doing it too much. And it's hard. It's taking some figuring out.
So we'll draw it towards the end. It's been great so far. So we normally do some quick fire questions. Simon, you got yours ready?
Got me, mate.
Shit.
So
No,
Simon,
tell me about this.
Hey, they're easy. Don't worry about it. It's just between like an A or a B. Okay. Simon, you hit off.
Start off with a food one. What's your spice at Nando's?
Medium. White boy.
I'll follow that theme. Ketchup or brown sauce?
Ketchup all day. Not into brown sauce.
More Family Guy or Simpsons?
Simpsons.
City break or beach holiday?
Beach holiday.
Nice.
Jones or GSP in their prime?
GSP all day is the best.
Silver or GSP?
Oh, now we're talking. Silver for the style points. GSP if I was gonna like tell a young fighter to watch them. They can't choose between them two. Them two are my boys.
Pride or UFC?
Yeah, UFC. Pride was a little bit before my time. Watched a lot of the videos, but yeah, UFC.
I agree. Gi or no gi?
Gi.
Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Gi. I prefer gi. I felt like I've always said I prefer doing gi because it feels like a break from MMA training. It feels like I play a different game. All the other training that I do in the gym, kickboxing, wrestling, boxing, no gi, MMA sparring, all feels like preparation for an MMA fight, whereas putting the gi on is just like fucking about, going upside down and doing mad shit. So yeah, I like the gi. I really like the gi.
Well, ADCC or IBJJF then?
ADCC. Okay. Don't like the rules. Don't like the rules in IBJJF. Don't like the fact you can't reap the knee and all that stuff. That's ridiculous. Don't really like the points.
Well, you won't be saying that now with your knee.
Yeah, true. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Maybe IBJJF will be where I get back into competition first.
When I guess you can answer this two ways, like maybe point A and point B. So point A, if you're in a fight, and point B, if you're watching a war or a quick finish.
If I'm in it, a quick finish all day. I've had too many wars. Don't want any more. If I'm watching it, a war, obviously. I want to see violence. I want blood and guts all over the floor.
So this will be another point A and point B. A will be if you're in the gi, and B will be no gi. Takedown or guard pull?
Takedown. Guard pull. Talk to me about guard pull.
Submission or knockout?
Knockout.
Nice. Sorry.
And last one from me, Fury or AJ?
Fury all day. Fury.
Yeah,
It's the man.
Last one from me, and it's my favourite one. Simon knows it. When you eat, is your fork in your left hand or your right hand?
My left hand. Left hand. Why? Is people do it other ways?
Yeah, right-handed.
That's just strange, isn't it? That's just bizarre. I don't trust them people.
I agree with that. So, Sam, you've been a great guest. Before we let you go, is there anyone you want to thank? Any sponsors, training partners, anything like that?
I'll thank Andrea at AGM. She's been sponsoring me even through this period where I've not really been active fighting. She's never stopped sponsoring me. She's been a real big help. Andrea at AGM. So that's like a legal finance type company. not really got many other sponsors at the minute, but I'll just thank all my teammates and my team. Gav's been a big help. Dec for getting me started in MMA was obviously there for me. He's been one of my best mates, always will be. Yeah, and all my teammates that are there day in, day out. Friends and family they always know how much they're appreciated. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. If people want to follow your career or anything, how can they watch your social media handles?
Sam Spencer MMA on pretty much everything. Sam Spencer MMA at Sam Spencer MMA, Instagrams, Facebook, all that kind of stuff.
Nice. Well, we've always put it in the subjects and stuff, don't we, Si? So
yeah,
we'll do that. We'll get that out, and yeah, just make sure you're watching this with your beers and the guys tomorrow.
No, I don't think
when they're watching
I don't think that'll be happening.
You've been great, dude. Thanks for your time, and stay safe.
There you go. Nice one. Cheers. Thanks for having me on. See you in a bit.